Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. This is part 7 of Tamiya's Kawasaki Ninja ZX-12R. Scale is 1 to 12. In part 7, I'm going to be starting off with the exhaust system before working my way through the build, placing on the fairing on the bike and one or two little bits and pieces. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. Starting off with the exhaust system, as you can see, I've already done a base coat of Revel Aquacolor 90 Silver, and then on top of that I'm going to be placing on Tamiya's X31 Titanium Gold, but this colour is a very light colour. It's almost like a buff I'm placing on it, just to give that used metal burnt look. The assembly is fairly straightforward. Once I took them off the sprues, the exhaust pipes themselves get built up onto each other. There is little location points on these to build them up. You may want to take pay special attention to the instructions, because they should actually just link into each other but just fold into it a certain way. Once that's on, these all set into chrome parts like the muffle system and things like that. Now there's certain areas that you have to remove, and this is what I'm doing here. Now there's little bars of plastic, little connection points that have to come off first of all. It's also advisable to take the chrome off on the connection points as well, because the cement, I'll find it difficult to eat through that. Now you can build this up in two ways. You can build individual parts up, then push everything together, or you can do it the way I'm doing it, just building it up as I go along. Either method works. There's no issue or reason why you should do either one. It's just whatever you feel comfortable with. I prefer doing it this way to limit the risk of getting cement onto the chrome. Chrome is notoriously difficult to work with, especially with cement. Any lightest little touch on the chrome will damage it, so you have to be very careful. However, the drawback of that is because I'm building them in situ as such, I will need a couple of clamps just to keep everything in place. The connection areas are quite tight, so the advantage of building them in sub-assembly before putting them together is you won't use any clamps. But it will take a lot more time, because obviously you have to wait until they're thoroughly dried. But this way I can get them on and clamped up, then go on to the next part of the build. And it's the same with the exhaust caps at the end. Again, you can build this up without putting these two halves together and just build them in situ. But personally, I think it's either like this. There's only one caveat really. The muffler at the end has to point in a certain direction, so you have to make sure that it's all lined up properly. In that respect, it's actually easier to build it up beforehand. But as I say, you have to be very careful with the placement of the cement. So you're going to have to judge whether that's worth doing or not. And then it's just a couple more clamps to make everything as secure. The fitting of the exhaust is relatively simple. The four main pipes here go underneath the radiator. Each one has their own little location point, and it's well defined for it just to sit in. You don't really have to press it hard or anything. It can be a little bit awkward, I suppose, because the radiator's in the way, but you should just be able to marry it up to the hole and it should just slot in. The rear is held in with a screw. It may look like it doesn't line up initially. You'll probably have to manoeuvre it in position. But once you line up the hole for the screw, you shouldn't have any difficulty with it. The only real difficulty you may have is the connection point for the screw is actually the foot plate on the rear. There is a little bracket for to sit into, but if you are finding it difficult to line up, just loosen the screws from the actual foot plate and everything should marry up. So now it's time to put on the bike's fairing. As you can see there, I'm using some canopy glue. But as I said in the last video, this didn't really hold all that well, and I had to go back and use proper cement for this. For the main side parts of the film, there's a couple of pieces that have to go onto them. There's two main halves with them, then two other sections that go on each half. Bear in mind, when this is on the bike, it all joins up, so you have to get the ankle done correctly. They are strange angles. Use a little bit of masking tape to dry fit if you're not sure. This part of the fairing for the rear of the bike. And there's only a very small contact point for this to go together. Now there is a temporary support bar that goes in, as well as the top cover. Don't glue on the top color or the support bar. Now I did initially, I didn't read the instructions properly. Luckily I realised my mistake and was able to prise them apart, plus the fact that I used the canopy glue, but as I said, that didn't really hold too well. So that in that case it was a bonus using this cement. So as you can see there, I'm putting on the top bit. Now this does eventually go on, but not until near the end. It's only meant to go on top at the moment as a stabilization device to help support the joint, because the contact point for the whole fairing is quite small. So as I said, I realised my mistake fairly quickly and I took off and cleaned the part up. It was no issue really, but it's worth pointing out. This is the covering for the fuel tank, and on the wings it's painted with Tamiya's XF1 flat black, and that's just the sweeping parts that I'm painting here. All the rest is left as the clear plastic. And then once it was dry, it was time for this part to be assembled. The two halves just marry up nicely. There's two little location points on each end for it to slot into. This is the central column or panel. That just goes in. There's a little lip with the on the cover itself. It fits in there nice and snugly. There's no need to apply any pressure to the part. It then sits over the fuel tank. The two prongs, these fit in towards the instrument panel. There's two little connection points that it just sits into. It's a little bit difficult for the camera to pick up because of the black colour, but it should just push in. And then for the rear of the bike, and taking away the temporary supports, it should just pull out. As you can see there, it just dropped off out as soon as I touched the unit. And that just simply slips on the back. There is two little location points for it to sit into. The instructions say it doesn't require cement for this, but I actually cemented it. I think it fitted better with an anchor point. I don't know whether I didn't line up the two halves properly or not, but the cement held it better nonetheless. Next to go on are the side fairings. Now this is held on with two little screws. Pick the larger side first and line one screw up, and then only then place in the second screw. If you do it the other way, you'll find that you're into a lot of difficulty. And keep the screws loose until you're certain of the fit before tightening them up. As I said, it can be quite difficult to fit these parts. And I would say as well, the screws are actually too small for this. I would have liked to have seen larger screws for this part. They just bite into the plastic and no more. The other side was easier to fit because once one side was on, I was then able to use the other side as a guide. As I said, this should all fit together, so on the underside it all becomes one unit. But again, probably a dry testing is going to be your best bet. Now bear in mind, I've never built a bike before or anything of this type, so it was a lot of trial and error for me to this point. I probably dry fit it at least 5 or 6 times before I went to the actual fitting itself. And as I'm doing this is where I'll end part 7, so I've just got to hold these closed, and then I'll leave it overnight until I'll go on to the next part. I should say with this, don't be tempted to use an actual clamp to hold these together. Just use your hands. It only takes a few minutes for it to bite and get stable. A clamp could probably damage the clear plastic. If you do want to use a clamp, make sure you put a bit of cloth or kitchen towel or something over it before doing so. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, please do so. Make sure you hit the notification bell, that way you'll be kept up to date not only with this build but all my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.